Week 2 absolutely spoiled us football fans, folks. Oh boy. What a slate. What a slate of football from the Sunday from the Thursday night game, frankly, to the Sunday morning and afternoon slate to the double header Monday night football games. They were neither here nor there. Some people complained about that doubleheader Monday night. The games were good, though, for the most part, but we'll get into those later in the video. I was waiting for the Monday night games to wrap up before I recorded this for you guys because I had a lot of thoughts on week 2 that I have noted down here on a ton of the games. If I don't talk about your game, you know what? I will. I'll talk about something about each of the games at least a little bit, just so everybody feels a little bit of love, even if it's one sentence or two. But some games I have more thoughts than the others. Some games were more impactful than the others. Some games had more rookies. Let's dive right into Thursday night football. The Green Bay Packers, the Washington Commanders, Jordan Love, Jaden Daniels. I mean, what a game. We're talking about fireworks here. We're talking about a primetime game. It's about as good as it gets. The Packers win this game 27-18, boosting up to 2-0. The Commanders falling 1-1. Jordan Love had a heck of a game, 19 for 31, 292 yards and 2 touchdowns. Many of those yards going to tight end Tucker Kraft. Shout out Tucker Kraft, 6 catches, 124 yards and a touchdown. And listen, man, this Packers team in general is just humming on all cylinders. They're looking great, man. They're looking great. From the O-line to their receivers, they really look like they've got some threats. And, of course, Jordan Love doing what Jordan Love does. But really, I think the spotlight is on their defense. It always felt like that key piece that they were missing was a really good pass rusher to really bring it together. Kenny Clark was great. But trading for Micah Parsons, franchise-altering move. We saw Philadelphia be aggressive. They go out and they paid Saquon Barkley, and they bought that key piece to their offense. I very much get those same vibes from the Green Bay Packers, and maybe that's a little bit of an over-exaggeration here in week 2, but they have stars on every level of that defense, surrounded with some great role players type. Micah Parsons, of course, on that defensive line, but you've also got Devontae Wyatt. Okay, you've also got Lucas Van Ness. In that linebacking room, Edrin Cooper is on his way to, a Pro Bowl season maybe. He looks great. Quay Walker, a solid second linebacker. And that secondary room is so talented. Highlighted with Xavier McKinley, of course. You've got Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, a super underrated cornerback. You lost Jair Alexander, and somehow it seemed like they got better. And of course, it's credit to the pass rush and the linebackers that makes the secondary's lives easier. I forget to mention Rashawn Gary, of course, coming off the opposite. I mean, the team is just so stacked. It's so loaded. It's going to be tough to see. They seem like they could be the team to beat in the NFC, and that's really not a crazy thing to say at all. Moving on to the Commanders a little bit, Jaden Daniels struggled. He's injured. He's going to miss week 3, which is kind of shocking and big for the Commanders. They're looking shaky, man, and I think a lot of it is their offensive line and their defense isn't super studded for the most part. They're a team that has a lot of the old guys. Austin Eckler, he's out for the rest of the season. We're going to see a lot of Big Bill. We're going to see, we want to see Terry McLaurin get involved a lot more. They got Deebo Samuel in the offseason. He's looked good in the offense for the most part. But that defense, I have a lot of question marks for. Bobby Wagner, he's on the latter half of his career now. Frankie Louvu, he's solid. But I just feel like they don't really have that dominant pass rusher. Hence Micah Parsons. That I think good defenses need a guy that'll make the quarterback uncomfortable. That's not really crazy to say. Commanders really don't have that, and their secondary isn't the greatest thing in the world anyway. So, Green Bay, they look phenomenal. Commanders, that sophomore slump is real, man, and it's not Jaden Daniels. It's not totally Daniels' fault per se, but it's just in general, the entire team. They're going to have some growing pains. They've got a young quarterback. It's bound to happen. Moving on, let's talk about the incredible Giants and Cowboys game going into overtime, and a crazy overtime thriller. Cowboys get the win 40-37 thanks to a field goal from Brandon Aubrey. There's a legitimate case Brandon Aubrey could be the MVP. He is that good, man. He is that good. I mean, it's kind of absurd how easy he makes these 60-yard kicks look. The Cowboys basically just need to cross midfield, and you're basically in Aubrey range. I mean, that's a cheat code. You're guaranteed 3 points. Heck of a game. Heck of a game. But let's talk about the New York Giants with Russell Wilson, who went 30 for 41, 450 yards. Are we back in the Seattle days? 3 touchdowns with 1 interception in overtime. It was a nearly perfect game. Honestly, the interception, he just got kind of greedy. It was kind of a desperate throw. He just chucked it, and it got picked off. Not the worst decision in the world. You know, you're tossing it up to Neighbors. He targeted Neighbors a ton. Neighbors came with 9 catches, 162 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But don't forget Wan'Dale Robinson, who got himself 8 catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown. So the Giants' offense looked pretty competent, man. They had like 4 straight flags, though, on their left tackle. His name is slipping my mind, number 55. And that was kind of a drive killer there. But now moving on to the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott had a heck of a game. 38 for 52, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception as well. CeeDee Lamb got involved heavily as expected. 9 receptions, 112 yards. Didn't find the end zone, unfortunately. All in all, Dallas, they looked good against Philly. I don't know what's the message to take from this game. Are the Giants a competent team? Or is Dallas not as good as we expected? I mean, I really don't know what the message is. They look good against the Super Bowl champions, and I hear they are in a dogfight with the New York Giants. Of course, division games, always going to be tough. Teams always play harder. Honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards the Giants being a better football team than we all expected. If we can get this Russell Wilson every game, they could win 8 or 9 games. Their O-line still needs help, of course. Their secondary needs help, but, they have a good pass rush. They have good receiving threats. They have Scatterbo. They have Tyrone Tracy. Their run game is whatever. Not the greatest thing in the world, but definitely not the worst thing in the world. Really what killed them was playing soft. Dallas was able to really march downfield relatively easy to get in Aubrey range for that game-winning kick. But, at the end of the day, both teams, I put in my notes here, both teams kind of suck. This was kind of like just a battle of mid. I don't think either of them are going to be cerebral threats in the NFC, but it was a heck of a game, and you gotta tip that to that. Seahawks-Steelers revenge game for DK Metcalf. The Seahawks get the win 31-17 thanks to a rookie blunder by Caleb Johnson on the kickoff. He hit the ball, didn't know if the other team picks it up in the end zone, it would be a touchdown for them. So that sucked. But Sam Darnold, he had himself almost a 300-yard game, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions to go on top of that. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense is always well. But, man, they have really rejuvenated Jalen Ramsey's career. He is looking really good out there. It's very impressive what he's doing. TJ Watt is such a threat in the run game. They don't run his way. It's actually insane. And Aaron Rodgers looks like he's found new life in Pittsburgh, going 18 for 33, 203 yards, 1 touchdown, and also a pair of interceptions. Jaylen Warren had a really good game, 14 carries, 48 yards, 4 receptions for 86 yards, had a big, 70-yard reception. So he looks like he is kind of taking over that backfield. I know some people thought it was going to be committee. A lot of people were expecting Caleb Johnson to be a big part of this, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. As for Seattle, we're just seeing a lot of JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba to the moon. 8 receptions, 103 yards. Didn't find the end zone quite yet. He had a big game against San Francisco in week 1. We're seeing the same thing here. Another trend that we're seeing with the Seahawks is having that split backfield. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are getting almost 50-50 splits. Kenneth Walker had 13 carries. Charbonnet had 15 carries. But here's the catch. Kenneth Walker had 105 yards and a touchdown. Zach Charbonnet, despite having 15 carries, had 10 yards. Just putting it out there. Cooper Kupp had himself 90 yards as well. Overall, the Seattle Seahawks, they're a competent team. I feel like they can go out and they can beat any team. Their defense plays really tough. But, I think that Tariq Woolen, He is just in his head now, and so that secondary can get picked on at times. I want to talk about the Titans game. The Rams, they get the win. They get the win, pretty commandingly, 33-19, but it was a pretty close game for the most part. The biggest issue being, of course, Cam Ward being a rookie and the offensive line just crumbling. I mean, it seemed like they couldn't block a cold. It was insane. Cam Ward under pressure, having to make some insane throws just to have a chance in this game. We saw Elick Ayomaner, a rookie out of Stanford, have a good game. He had 4 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. Crazy touchdown by Cameron Ward, scrambling out to the right side, throwing it across his body. I think he's really starting to trust Ayomaner, and so I think that could be a nice connection there. Tony Pollard had 92 yards on the ground, and then the Rams are just doing what the Rams do. They're sitting at 2-0 right now. Matthew Stafford, nearly a 300-yard game, 298 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Devontae Adams, he is reversing the clock, 106 yards and a touchdown. The Rams are always just going to be in the mix. They are a well-coached team. They have a good quarterback, and they always have a solid defense. Those are just keys to success, man. They will be continuously winning games. Again, it was just against the Titans, but hey, you went out, you get the job done. That's all that matters. The Bills take care of business with the New York Jets, 30-10. As expected here, not much to touch on. The Bills are the Bills. Josh Allen is him. He did get banged up a little bit, but he returned. Speaking of banged up, Justin Fields, unfortunately, had a concussion, I believe, and so he was out for most of the game. I think that really affected the Jets' game plan. They love to run the ball, but without Fields, you don't get that quarterback threat of running it, and Fields is such a dynamic runner. That Tyrod Taylor obviously can't replicate what Fields can do on the ground. Despite not playing the entire game, Fields led the team in rushing with 49. But so I think hopefully he's good by next week, and then they'll be back on track because they looked really good against the Steelers in Week 1. They look like a fun football team. They ran the ball really well. Didn't see the same type of production against the Bills, but of course Buffalo is just a different animal. New England and the Miami Dolphins. And listen, my biggest takeaway here is Miami just needs a total reset, and that's not a hot take again. This is not for hot takes. Everybody out here sees this. Mike McDaniel, clearly that experiment did not work out. Tua wasn't the guy. He just looks totally flustered out there. He does not look like himself. Somehow, some way he regressed. Usually quarterbacks get better as they go, not Tua. He didn't even plateau. He just got worse and worse and worse. Very unfortunate. They take the L to the Patriots, 33-27. It was a close game, but man, Miami, they're just bad. I expect Tyreek Hill to get traded, and I feel like for the most part, just trade everybody. Just trade everybody, build around them on a chain. Maybe Jalen Waddle can stick around. See who on the defense wants to stick around. Maybe Jalen Phillips will stick around. And you just need to find a new culture, a new identity. Mike McDaniel came in, and it was all fun. It was all flashy. Speed everywhere. That didn't work out. You had speed, but you didn't have the quarterback to take advantage of that speed. So, what really is the positive there? Miami, you got to get it together. It's time to go into total rebuild mode, and I expect it to happen sooner rather than later. The Bengals get the win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 31-27, and unfortunately, Joe Burrow goes down with a turf toe injury, and it sounds very severe, needing surgery, out for 3 months. Wow. You don't want to see this happen with your star quarterback against a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars. You just want to get in, get out, take care of business. Unfortunately, where the Bengals are right now, they're kind of on the level of the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's why it's kind of a close game. Jacksonville really should have won the game. Bengals are just in such a weird position where they are just relying on their offense, okay? Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, just go out there and score. Our defense, they'll give up points. It's okay. It's okay. We'll hope that our defense can hold them to a field goal for just one possession, and then our offense will take over. Boom. Let's go score a touchdown. But that doesn't necessarily work when Joe Burrow is out and you got Jake Browning in there. Not that Browning is a bad backup quarterback per se. We've seen him do some really good stuff, but he's not Joe Burrow. They're not going to beat the AFC powerhouses. Frankly, their season is done. I think that window, this season at least, is shut. And they have to go out and they really have to have an incredible draft. They have to draft really well. They need to draft or trade for a star quarterback. What was the last great Bengals safety or cornerback? Things like that you think about. They were hesitant to pay Trey Henderson. They had some problems with Shamar Stewart, the first round pick. The Bengals vibes were kind of cooked from the start. Let's be real. Jacksonville, I'm concerned about. I'm rooting for them. We'll see how Lawrence progresses. Travis Hunter, he's doing that cornerback and receiver stuff, and I like it. He's fun to watch out there. Brian Thomas Jr., he looked like he was scared of contact and stuff. Man, you just got to run through. He's such a talented guy. I think he'll get it together. Liam Cohen called a great game. Let's be real. Jacksonville just feels like they're right there. They're just a key piece away or something. But I feel like both of these teams would really benefit for going out and trading for a superstar. And I think a lot of teams need to be more aggressive like that. And that's why I feel like teams like the Packers are going to excel. You made an aggressive trade for Micah Parsons, and I think it'll pay dividends in the end. We saw that with the Eagles. They paid Saquon, paid dividends. And I think that the guys in the AFC, to keep up with the Lamar Jacksons, with the Josh Allens, with the Patrick Mahomes, you got to go out and you got to be aggressive. Point blank period. Talking about Lawrence also, I put in my notes here, maybe it might be time for a change of scenery for him and for Jacksonville. I think that he's still young and he can still grow so much. But, we're in year 4, year 5, and you haven't really had that superstar level flashes that you kind of hope to see. And I wonder if maybe going somewhere new would be most beneficial for Jacksonville to start finding that new franchise guy, and for Trevor Lawrence to find his new home and his new place to shine. Just a thought I'm throwing out there. Not that it's probably not going to happen. I think Jacksonville goes down if Lawrence goes down, but something you throw out there. The 49ers dealing with a ton of injuries. They get the win against the New Orleans Saints, and what a quarterback matchup of Mac Jones versus Spencer Rattler. I'm sure all of you watched this on your televisions. Mac Jones' resurgence, hey, he had a heck of a game throwing for almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. That Kyle Shanahan system is simply foolproof. I think we could have put Spencer Rattler. We could have switched quarterbacks, and Spencer Rattler would look like the star in this game. But one thing to highlight, this 49ers defense is legit. Now, I'm a little biased. I am a 49er fan for those that don't know. But yes, this defense looks really good. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa is having an incredible start of the season, and the rest of the D-line is making his job a lot easier. I don't want to touch on the 49ers too much. If you do want to listen to my biased 49er takes, there's a different podcast for that, the Gold Rush podcast. Go take a look at that. Don't really want to touch on the Saints too much. They're in complete rebuild mode, and there's no saving it. I think that they are maybe 2 or 3 years out from really competing. I don't think Spencer Rattler is that guy. Hey, I'm not opposed to tanking for Arch. I think Arch would look great when in New Orleans. The Ravens mopped the floor with the Cleveland Browns, 41-17. I don't even need to talk about this game. Lamar Jackson, to me, he's my MVP. I think he's going to end up winning MVP at the end of the season. Through 2 weeks, he's the MVP. I think through 17, 18 weeks, he'll also be the MVP. Not much to say about that. Cleveland, they're going Cleveland. The Bears getting absolutely embarrassed by the Detroit Lions, 52-21. Chicago, man, what is going on? They were labeled the offseason winners. They got Ben Johnson. They rebuilt this offensive line. And I don't know if it's a Caleb Williams problem or what, but man, they look discombobulated after the first couple drives or so. Caleb looks lost. The play calling gets sloppy. Man, I don't know. I think Caleb, he needs time to get used to. I'm sure Ben Johnson is calling some crazy stuff in his ear, and I think he's only in his second year. I think Caleb needs time. I think Ben Johnson needs time as a head coach. But one thing of note, their defense is solid. Of course, against Detroit, it didn't look like that, but their defense has some potential. Unfortunately, they won't have Jalen Johnson for the rest of the season, and that's a big blow. But I still believe in their defense. I don't think this is going to be their year. I think that North belongs to the Packers, maybe the Lions, but Chicago, I expect them to get together. I expect Caleb to be a good starter in the NFL, just maybe not this year. Growing pains. Young quarterback, You hurt with your young quarterback. I know a lot of people were worried about Detroit after last week and their ugly loss against the Packers. I think the Packers are just that good. Detroit proved this game. There's no need to worry. They are still the good old Detroit Lions that we know and love. Moving on, let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. Wow. Off to a 2-0 start for the first time since 2009. They get the win against the Denver Broncos, 29-28, coming off a game-winning field goal. You know, they set up for a 60-yarder or something like that, and Denver just makes a bonehead error, getting a leverage flag, moving the Colts to a very makeable, it was like a 40-something yarder field goal. And, of course, they sink it right down the middle. Denver is devastated. Daniel Jones, man, he is maybe the star of these first 2 weeks. He's looked really good. He's looked really good. Credit to the Colts coaching staff. I know a lot of people thought it was Anthony Richardson's job. It was Richardson's season. But they said, nah, Jones is going to be our quarterback week 1. A lot of people were like, okay, wrong choice, guys. Wrong choice. But it clearly proved to be correct. Jonathan Taylor looks good, man. Their offensive line is creating very easy gaps for him to go through against a really good defense. The Colts offense really shined. They look solid. The Broncos always have a stout defense, and this season is no other. Patrick Surtain was down with injury for a little bit, but he returned. The Colts, they prevailed. Daniel Jones was dropping dimes. Jonathan Taylor had himself, over 100 yards. I am truly speechless about the Colts. I have no idea how they ended up this good. I don't think anybody expected this. And they really are in a good chance to win that AFC South division. It's a pretty weak division. Their only comp really is the Houston Texans, and they're 0-2. The Denver Broncos now sit at 1-1, and I think that next week is going to be super crucial for them as a team, going up against the Chargers, a division rival game. That's going to be big to test their offense. Bo Nix has looked a little shaky these first 2 weeks. He had a solid game, 2 of 6, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, but those interceptions kind of keep piling up. Their run game, I'm a fan of. They throw Dobbins in the mix, they throw Harvey in the mix, and Tyler Batty also is up in there. So, the Broncos are a competent team. They're just in such a competitive division. It's hard to see them maybe sneaking a wild card. I still don't think they're talented enough to win that division, however. The Carolina Panthers and the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals get the win 27-22. And, man, I just don't know how Carolina lost this game. They get a late game touchdown. They end up picking up the onside kick. And Bryce Young is just not able to get this team in the end zone. It seemed like they kept trying to get all the yards they needed in one instead of they had the time to pick up a couple yards and try to inch closer and closer to the end zone. Bryce, he finished last season so hot, and it was really like maybe we got something here in Carolina. But that really fizzled out these first 2 weeks. You really want to see more out of him. He's got it in him. He rallied this team up when they were down by a ton, and it seemed like they were dead in the water. But he can't really escape the pocket. Their Panthers' O-line is a little banged up. But, man, they had multiple opportunities to win this game. And they just didn't come up. That being said, though, Ryan McMillan is him. Had an impressive game. Had some crazy catches. What did he put up? He went 6 receptions and 100 yards on the dot. Didn't find the end zone. The Cardinals, they get the win. They look nice, but they almost blew the game. I like Kyler Murray and their offense and such, but Marvin Harrison still is kind of struggling. He had himself a handful of yards, but those drops are still adamant. Their defense has definitely improved, but again, it almost allowed Carolina to come back into this game. Now, this is maybe one of the least hyped up Super Bowl rematches I've ever seen. A very low scoring game. The Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Eagles get the win. But is it an impressive win? I don't know. It's a 3-point victory, 20-17. But the Kansas City Chiefs, they have just looked sloppy. They're all over the place. They start 0-2. Patrick Mahomes, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a measly 187 yards. Rushing, Mahomes is the leading rusher here with 66 yards. They're using Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco as they typically do. Receiving has been the Chiefs' biggest issue. They really don't got a receiver. Rashee Rice is suspended. Xavier Worthy is injured. That leaves the number one receiver to be Tyquan Thornton, I guess. Hollywood Brown. Maybe Juju. Is it Travis Kelce? Travis Kelce almost single-handedly lost this team the game. He had a ball right in his chest, right on the money. Drops it. That ball goes up. It's an Andrew Mukuba interception for the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Eagles, they're also not looked super impressive. They have receivers, but they don't really throw the ball. And I know if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And their run game is one of the best in the entire league. Saquon Barkley, 22 carries, 88 yards. A.J. Dillon, he got himself some carries as well. But you've got Devonta Smith, you got A.J. Brown. Use those guys, Jalen Hurts, I don't think he's had a completion over 15. Maybe he had one bomb to Devonta Smith. That was a little underthrown, and it should have been a touchdown, let's be quite frank. Jalen Hurts had himself 101 yards, hasn't thrown a passing touchdown. Man, they are just such an interesting offense. But listen, I think this is the game. This is the game that the Eagles are deciding to play this season. They're going to grind you down. They're not going to play a fun game. You don't want to play these guys. You're going to have to stop the run, and you're going to have to respect the short passes. I feel like as a fan perspective, it's annoying, but schematically in the NFL, going against it must be a nightmare. And then you got to worry about the tush push, which is neither here nor there. I'm not going to speak on it at the moment. But man, they are just, it's cleverly put together. They're winning games. They're 2-0. It's hard to hate. Am I concerned for the Chiefs? Meh. I still think they put it together. I'm not going to be the one to bet against Mahomes. I still think both teams are great, despite it being relatively low scoring and relatively a boring game to watch. I don't know if it's a hot take or not. I don't think either of these teams are going to be in the Super Bowl this year. I don't think the Eagles go back-to-back. I don't think Kansas City finds. I think this might be the year. Kansas City, they'll still probably have a great playoff run. They'll still make the AFC Championship game. Same with Philadelphia. But I don't think either of these teams will make the Super Bowl. The Atlanta Falcons win big against the Minnesota Vikings, 22-6. Big thanks to the pass rush in Atlanta. Finally, they have a pass rush. I just feel like it's been years since the Falcons have had a good pass rush. The Vikings O-line was pretty banged up, especially missing Christian Darrisaw at that left tackle position. But man, the Falcons rookies, James Pierce and Jalen Walker looked really good. It kind of helped that McCarthy is playing in his second game ever, and those pains are still there. These second-year quarterbacks, they're going in their sophomore year. They're not going to be perfect, especially in the beginning of the year. And McCarthy was definitely not that. And frankly, even Penix, both quarterbacks are still learning the game of football, dang near. Penix got limited time last year with Kirk Cousins in the mix. McCarthy was injured all last year. All things considered, we only had one touchdown in this game by Tyler Algier. It was just kind of a weird game to watch. And important note for the Atlanta Falcons, Young Ho Koo was benched for Parker Romo, who went 5 for 5. How about that, Atlanta? My headline here in the notes was the Falcons are cool again, and I really do feel that. I feel like the vibes are back. Penix, Bijan, Drake London. That is such a good young core to build the offense around. Defensively, now you got two good young pass rushers. You still have A.J. Terrell in the mix. You got Xavier Watts up top, and he's looked really nice his first year. This is a team that I feel like they could be really competent. Maybe not this year quite yet, but I think maybe next year could be ATL's year, depending on how their offseason goes. J.J. McCarthy for Minnesota. Minnesota had some high expectations coming into this year. They're coming off of a big win against the Chicago Bears, a big comeback win. And some people thought, hey, maybe we're going to see that again with McCarthy late in the game, but it just wasn't the case. It was just a bad game. And he kind of holds onto the ball a ton. He can't really throw the ball. I don't know. He doesn't really throw his left side a ton. I was just watching a video earlier today, but it's too early to call him a bust. Obviously, it's too early to give up on him. Obviously, he's basically a rookie. And he unfortunately got injured. He may miss multiple weeks. He's going to be out next week. So it's going to be Carson Wentz time in Minnesota. So we'll see how Carson Wentz does compared to J.J. McCarthy. And then we'll really see, is it the play calling? Is it J.J. McCarthy just being a rookie and learning the Kevin O'Connell system? Moving on to the Monday night games. That was for Sunday Night Football. We had the Penix and McCarthy on Sunday night, which is pretty sick. Monday night, the NFC South still in the mix here, and I feel like it's the Bucks division to lose. I think ATL's got it next year, but this year I feel like the Bucks have got it, man. Baker is pretty sick. Their offense just be humming, man. Baker and co are so fun. And it helps that they have a stud receiver in Emeka Egbuka, and he is balling out, man. And when this team gets Chris Godwin back, that's going to be fireworks, man. You've got Mike Evans going downfield. You got Egbuka stretching out the field, and Chris Godwin that you got to worry about. And not only that, but you have to respect the run game with Bucky Irving and Rashad White there. Rashad White had himself a heck of a game today. You really didn't expect to see much of him, but he looked really nice. Only downfall is they are pretty banged up. No Tristan Wirfs. They've got Graham Barton at left tackle. The O-line is pretty banged up. And I saw Kalijah Kancey went down during the game. They're just pretty banged up, so you hope that they can get healthy. Even Baker, he got banged up. He grabbed his ankle, but man, that trash talk kind of fueled him up, and he went to go talk his trash against C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They took down the Houston Texans. I guess I didn't mention that. I got so fired up talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They beat the Houston Texans. It was a good game. It was a good game. It kind of came down to the wire, but overall the Bucs got the win 20-19. Kind of went down to the wire. It did go down to the wire. When Baker Mayfield is just in the zone, he's hard to stop. You can't stop locked in Baker Mayfield. He goes 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bucky Irving, 71 yards on the ground. But let's talk about Houston for a moment, because now they're 0-2. They're a team that had a lot of expectations this season. You really want to see C.J. Stroud take that next leap. It's just tough. It's not there quite yet. Nico Collins had himself a 29-yard receiving touchdown and then was quiet the rest of the game. Is it play calling, or is he not getting open, or is Stroud not finding him? I don't know. But I think it partially also starts in the trenches. Their O-line is a pretty weak unit. Tampa Bay doesn't necessarily have the best pass rush, but them guys were getting through like butter. The veteran Nick Chubb had himself 43 yards and a touchdown. He had himself a long carry, which is pretty sick. You love seeing Chubb getting in there. I just feel like the Texans have weapons. They're just not utilizing them. Okay, Nico Collins, as I mentioned, Dalton Schultz, Xavier Hutchinson, even. You got the rookies, Jaden Higgins, and even Jalen Noel, who had himself a nice kick return. You could put him in at receiver too. They have the weapons. They have the pieces to be a really competent team besides that offensive line. So you really want to see them, at least throughout the offseason. Maybe if you can trade for a guy, but that O-line just needs to beef up. But the plus is their defense is one of the best in the league. Azeez Al-Shire, Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, those guys are insane. And Derek Stingley is still one of the best corners in the entire NFL. The most important thing about their defense is to clean up the flags. But, they're in a weak division. So, it's going to be, I think later in the year, it'll come down between the Texans and the Colts for the winner of that division. And finally, to finish out week 2, we had an AFC West showdown. The Los Angeles Chargers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Chargers get a nice win, 20-9, going 2-0, leading that AFC West division, which is big this early in the year in a competitive division like the West, where every game matters, especially the divisional games. And now the Chargers, they beat the Raiders, they beat the Chiefs, and now they go on to place the Denver Broncos. They could go 3-0, all wins being division rivals. That is huge, and it'll be big down the stretch. Herbert is playing some of the best ball of his entire career. Today he goes 19 for 27, 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. Quentin Johnston, breakout year. Hello. He had 3 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown following his great game that he had against Kansas City in Brazil just last week. Ladd and Keenan are great complement pieces as well. This whole offense is just clicking. But similar to the Texans, the O-line is sorry, man. Besides Joe Alt, and I know Rashawn Slater is out, and that he is such a key piece of that O-line, their interior O-line, it feels like guys are just getting through easy, especially in the run game. Omarion Hampton, they were just getting no push in the red zone at all, and Hampton was getting stuffed back there. It was ugly to see. Their defense could be cleaned up a little bit, but they've got the depth. It's not too big of an issue where it's going to lose them games. I feel like, unfortunately, Khalil Mack, he done broke his whole arm, I think. I'm not entirely sure what the word is, but he was going for a tackle, and another one of his Chargers teammates was coming for a tackle, and Mack's arm got stuck between the ball carrier and the other teammate, and it was gruesome. I didn't like it. Talk about the Raiders. The Raiders are going to Raider. Let's be real. Geno is never going to work out. Their defense is pretty old. You got guys like Jeremy Chin out there. You got Jamal Adams. You got Devin White. I'll respect Adams a little bit. He was flying on the ball, a lot better than we've seen in the past from him. But, they don't really have any of those super key strong guys that you really want to see. They're not going to win this division. They're not going to make the playoffs this year. This team just needs a few years to really iron out the flaws. I think Ashton Genty will pan out, not quite yet, because their O-line isn't that good. You see some promising. You see him breaking tackles like he used to in college, but you also see guys whiffing blocks, making it an easy one-on-one hit for the defender. Coming downhill. It's kind of tough to see there in Las Vegas. And that'll do it. Week 2 was full of a bunch of storylines, some great games, and I'm looking forward to week 3. Football is back. We used to fight. We used to pray for games like Mac Jones and Spencer Rattler going at it. Nonetheless, I will catch you guys in week 3 recapping those games as well. Maybe they won't be as good and we won't cover every single one of them. But this week was pretty loaded. If you did make it through the entire video, please leave a like, leave a comment. I love chatting with y'all down there. While you're down there, take a look at the other socials, the TikTok, the Instagram, the Twitter. I will catch you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Peace out.